number. This is an octahedron, 1440, and maybe some of you are seeing a number in there that kind of triggers you a little bit. This is 6480, and this is 3600. If you play all these combined, it's a completely different F-sharp major chord, but it's an F-sharp major chord. And I'm like, well, there's a coincidence again. If you take sacred geometry, if anybody have studied that a little bit, you start with a circle. Sacred geometry always starts with a circle. So you start with 360, you add another 720. So you could say, I'm listening to the Vesica Pisces. A lot of people say this is the very shape that is the birth of all life as we know it, is two circles, cell division, all those things, that life is happening in this zone right here. And then the three-circle design, 360, 720, 1080, it gives us an F-sharp, two-part harmony F-sharp. And then when you get to a full-on sacred geometry, this is called the germ of life. When you see it a little bit bigger, seed of life, a little bit bigger, the flower of life. But this is a mysterious symbol that has really haunted mankind for thousands of years. It is literally laser burned into temples in Egypt. It shows up everywhere. In all cultures, it's as if it was almost sent to us. And I played this. I'm going to play it for you later, but I'm not going to play it now because it doesn't sound pretty through the iPhone. But I took 360 and I added 360. I started with 360 and we let it run. We add 360 to it, we get 720. We add 360 to that, we get 1080. We add 360 to that, we get 1440. We add 360 to that, we get 1800. And we add 360 to that, and we get 2160 once again. You play all those, F-sharp major chord again in a different variance. When you hear this F-sharp chord, it's probably going to sound very familiar to you. And it's not in any kind of tuning. You would never find it on a piano. No piano. Even if it was tuned to a certain key, it would never play these tones. You have to isolate them out some way. And it used to be you had to buy equipment to do it. Now you can do it on an iPhone. So we have some... So what we have in instrument tuning is the big mystery, and I can't explain it to you, but we have this A, fourth octave A, that music has been tuned to since we know music existed. Now, we measure tuning in vibration cycles per second, but humanity was tuning to this A before they knew what a second was or what vibration cycles were. It just happened to be if they had a tuning fork, or if they had a flute, or they had a bowl, a crystal bowl, it seemed to vibrate around an A at 432. Not modern instruments, about 80 years ago, when all the the Beethovens and the Bachs and the Mozarts, their music seemed to be played in this tuning here, and then it became 440. And the difference, I can play you. Here's an A at 432, and that's just what it sounds like simply. An A at 440 doesn't sound very different, but the difference between the two, that's 8 cycles difference between the two of them. There are people that believe it was intentionally done to us to keep us in this state of agitation, that it started, that there was somebody like an Illuminati or someone like that that knew 432 was probably involved in something. I'm going to turn this off because it's very annoying.
Holy shit!
So,
hey, there you go. There's something about the timing of that hitting the earth, and it's been 80 to 100 years ago when everybody went from 432 to 440. You go way back, everybody's tuned 432.
Right, and they weren't calling it 432. Right, and they weren't calling it 432. Now here's a funny other coincidence. Pythagoras is the father of our modern music. He created a scale system. It's like a tone grid, and he had note 432 in it. But it wasn't because it was 432 cycles per second. It was, he started at note number 1, whatever note number 1 was, moved in fifths, and the first fifth he came to was note number 27. 27, if anybody happens to know, the number of Sanskrit letters in the alphabet. 54, you double it. That's an octave. That would be the next A up the scale. 54 is the number of masculine, feminine letters in Sanskrit. Double it again, you're at 108. 108, a lot of you people might recognize for a lot of different reasons. It's number of prayer beads in a mala. 108 shows up for a lot of different reasons. Double it again, you're at 216. 216 shows up in a lot of ways we're going to talk about. Then you're at 432, and then you're at 864. So all those numbers we will never hear again. None of the music that any of you listen to, unless you listen to a musician that intentionally tunes their instruments to 432, you will not hear it. This is the only music you will ever hear. So we talk about a 432 and the numbers in a tuning grid. When you tune, all you have to do is pick one note in a tuning system. It gives you a numerical value to every single other note in that system. It doesn't matter how low it goes or how high it goes. Once you pick a single reference point, it's going to dictate what all the other notes are. So in 432, if you were to find the F sharps, the A sharps, the C sharps, the Ds, the E's that we talked about, you'll find 45. We all talk about 45 degrees in geometry, 90 right angles, 180s, 360s, 540s, 1080s, 1440s, 2160s, 3600s. All of them are here. And if you go to 440, none of them are here.
Wow.
So it's like, is geometry important? Tesla said it was. Is vibration frequency important? Yes. Does 440 lead us down a trail to seeing those numbers? No, it doesn't. 432 just is an interesting number. Shows up, Joseph Campbell, the guy who wrote The Hero with 1,000 Faces and talks about the hero's journey and the myth. He said in his journeys, 432 was the most important number he'd ever come across. It was the mythical number, it was like the number of myth to him. There are 432,000 years in a Kali Yuga, which is Indian long cycle of time measurement. If you take, here's where things start getting interesting. If you take 432 and just look at the number sequence of it, and you look at, say, half of it, you get 216. 216, we saw that our cube was 2160. 216 shows up for other reasons we'll talk about. If you double 432, you get 864. Anybody know how many seconds there are in a day? 86,400. Anybody know how big the diameter of the sun is in miles? 86,400. 36, if we take the shape of the sun or the moon, which we call 360, and multiply it times the day or night that it rules, 360 times 12 is 4320. So now we're talking about lots of different things. We're talking about measuring space and time, planetary distances. And people would say, well, those are all arbitrary measurements. You know, you're talking about inches and feet and seconds, and all those things are isolated things that we made up, so why are you even adhering to any of them? Also another number here that I said, 864, the number of seconds in a day, it equals 1,414 minutes in a day. Remember that number, 1440 was in our geometric shapes. So even the number of minutes in our day. And the Star of David, what people really believe that star to be was a Merkaba, a three-dimensional intersection of stars, or tetrahedrons. Each one of those tetrahedrons is 720, so 720 is 1440, as in the Merkaba is a 1440. 2160 is a really amazing number. It was the number of our cube, if you remember. It was also our flower of life when we added all 6 circles. Completely different reason for doing it, but it was also 2160. 2160 is the diameter of our moon in miles. Where the sun was 864, 1,000 miles across, double the number sequence of 432, the moon is 216, exactly half the 432 sequence. An astrological age, age of Aquarius, age of Pisces, 2,160 years long. And what is the other one? The cube, age, and moon. Those are all 3 different things. They're 3 different measurements now. We're measuring time, we're measuring diameter, and we're measuring distance. 3 different things. You go, okay, those should be unrelated, and yet they all seem to expose this. They don't seem to, they do. They bring 2160. 2160, each age, you know how many ages there are? We know how many zodiac ages are, right?
12.
12 times 2160 gives us a really cool number. 25,920. 25, that's a thing. Our Earth does 3 wild things. It orbits around the sun, 365 days. It rotates what we call every 24 hours. And then it does one really big thing that people have a tough time imagining, but our Earth is tilted on an axis. A lot of people do know that. When you buy a globe, you see that it's tilted. What we don't know is that that axis is actually going through space, spinning like a top. And it happens to take 25,920 years to do that. So,
And the Mayans.
Which we just completed.
and
So
we just completed this whole end of the Mayan calendar. That was one of the things we just completed. We're finishing the age of Pisces, moving into the age of Aquarius. So here's this 25,920. Keep that in your head because it's related, obviously, times the 2160 times 12. 2160 is a really cool number for another reason. If you divide it by 2, so it's almost like looking at the moon and saying, Moon, give me some answers. If you divide it by 2, you get 1080. 1080 is the number of the octagon. If you divide it by 3, you get 720, the number of the hexagon. If you divide it by 4, you get 540, the number of the pentagon. If you divide it by 6, you get 360, the number of both the square and circle. Like the moon is almost talking to us in a numerical way. If you know that it's 2160 in miles, it will reveal these numbers that we also played as frequency, and we know that they're F sharps and C sharps harmonizing together. What's 2160 divided by 5? Yes? 432. The same key that turns us on to the mystery of revealing geometry and frequency. That blew my mind. That was a holy shit moment for me. Because you're thinking 2160 divided by the most simple math you can do. This is not hard math, this is simple math. And yet it's revealing all these geometric shapes with our little magic key of A432 thrown into the mix. So the real big thing is the people that argue these are arbitrary measurements. A second is arbitrary, a mile is arbitrary. Geometry is arbitrary because it's based on 60-degree math. All those things. Well, you can make an argument like that for a little while. But then it becomes less arbitrary. If you're thinking when we were evolving and we were counting sticks and stones, how should we count? I would say we would look at our hands or feet and go, there's 10 of these things. That's metrics. We are metric. A lot of the world is metric. But it didn't start that way. It really started in Sumeria 5,000 years ago, and the counting system was completely different. It used the thumb to count the knuckles of the 4 long fingers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and use all 5 fingers as multipliers. So we're talking advanced math from the people who invented language. There was no language before this same culture invented it with cuneiform, and now this same culture has given us a counting system that reveals 12s and 60s that were the base of all of this big math that we still use in the world today. We use metrics. Metrics is the most common way to measure everything in science and distance in our planet, except for the 3 biggest things. The world is still measured in geometry and time. Time is still measured by 60, and space we still measure in distance in miles. So the 3 biggest things, and geometry is 60. So this is called 1260 math. Where did 1260 math come from?
Nah.
The Sumerians said that they were given this information by visiting sky gods. They called the Anunnaki. They said that they gave them the writing. They said they gave them the 1260 counting system. So think of anything that you count by 12s, dozen donuts, months in a year, hours and a half of a day. Anytime you see 12s and 60s, you are, without knowing it, going back to a 5,000-year-old counting system that the people of the day said they got from visiting sky visitors. And it wasn't in a mythological gods coming, they made pictures of hovering skycraft. That these people were hovering, they were bearded people, they were tall, they were humanoid in form. They didn't look like this, that was just because it was simpler to draw. Our time, distance, and geometry are all related to this same moment in time and started with the same thrust, and that those people who said they got the information got it from extraterrestrial. So what's the integratron got to do with it? Well, a lot of you know that the story is that, and it's almost exactly 60 years ago. Here we're talking about 60s, and exactly 60 years
I know,
ago,
right?
10 days, George Van Tassel believed he was contacted. If you go with us tomorrow to Giant Rock, out by Giant Rock is a landing strip of a dirt runway. He operated it, and on August 24th,
53.
1953, so exactly 60 years ago. Wrong time. George Van Tassel believed he was visited by a sky visitor with advanced technology and knowledge, who gave him a formula, F equals 1 over T, and we know that F is frequency. And I happened to, Colleen did it for me, wherever Colleen is. There's one surviving TV interview of George Van Tassel. We took about 6 little segments and spliced them all together, so you can hear Van Tassel himself talking about this formula.
Thank you.
So here we go. It's only 1 minute.
Thank you.
This was the result of a formula which was given to me by a man who landed a ship at my airport in 1953. And we put this formula under research, tested a number of experiments on a bench in a good electronics lab in Chicago, and we produced phenomenal results with evidence that we should do it on a larger scale in order to be able to do more with it. And this evolved out of something that started in 1953 into a 4-story high machine that we're working on down here today. The formula came from a ship that landed at my airport in 1953 on August the 24th, which had 4 people aboard it that came from another planet. There's nothing to it, to remember. F equals 1 over T. F being frequency and T being time.
There's George telling us about the Thank you, Colleen. Once again, the mysterious Colleen produces amazing pieces of information. So the question is that no one knows. Exactly, I mean, the owners here of the Integratron, they wear these shirts that says F equals 1 over T. Everybody knows the formula, they've seen it for years. It's like, okay, and we know that F is frequency, but what's the 1 and what's the number for time? That's the question. So, in my thinking, if it was aliens, they were probably very aware. The very first thing we're learning about planets as we're studying them is we get to see their orbits around their stars. We get to see their wobbles, their rotation patterns. We get to see the far distance away things that cycles that pattern that planet is doing. So to me, it made sense that an alien race might leave a clue that they knew about us, and maybe it's the same alien race that gave us the key to finding all the other things that we found with geometry, space-time measurement. And the Mayans, like Gary said, the Mayans were aware of this full precession of the equinox, this one full wobble of the Earth, 25,920. The Mayans called one great year. I'm like, well, if you're an alien and you know the biggest thing that our planet does, and we don't even know, most of us don't know, but what if one great year is the 1? That makes sense to me. And then the time, to me, I was raised in the boating industry, I was a Coast Guard licensed boat captain. Time was always a function of 60, the same 60 that the Sumerians got, and to calculate time. It seemed just to make sense. We have 60 seconds a minute, 60 minutes an hour. So the formula became F frequency that we're looking for to activate this machine is 25,920 divided by 60. Maybe some of you know where I'm going. 432.
Oh.
The key that seems to unlock. It's like, maybe the frequency itself is important to hear, but for sure it seems like the frequency that you're turning a key in a lock that flowers, that opens up all these other numbers and coincidences. That to me was ridiculous. That was my number 2 or 3 holy shit moments. And then the Sumerian 1260. Remember how we counted 12 knuckles and then it led to 60? 12 became a big number. We talk about if you ever see 12 anywhere. Months, eggs, donuts, cycles. 12 is a big one. 12 squared is a big number that pops up in history, 144. And I don't know if anybody, like, I'll go back here and ask you to look for something. Look at these numbers real quick and see if something other than we know that they're tone, if there's something that pops out at you.
They're all
So-
nines.
Well, they're all nines.
We're all nines.
And
And every single number, every single note in this grid, and there's thousands of them, from low frequencies to ultrasonic frequencies, they all total 9. Every single one of them. If they happen to total more than 9, they will total 18. And then you just take, like in numerology, 8 plus 1 and 9. Or 27. It's 2 and 7 and 9. All of them total 9. That 9 seemed to be really important. And so the 12s, to the Sumerians, the 12 squared, 144 is D in our 432 tuning. And that 144 shows up a lot. A lot of people seem to be triggered by this, and we have counting. We call it a gross, 12 dozen, 144. 1440 was the number of one of our F sharps. We saw that it was a number. 1440 was a number in our geometry math that we did. And then it doesn't seem too far of a stretch to see the 144,000. That number has shown up in a lot of ways. A lot of you might know one of the ways it's shown up. But it all harkens back to the same Sumerian 12, the significance of 12, multiplying it times itself, getting 140, carrying it out to 1440, carrying it out one more decimal to, or 2 more decimals to 144,000. The Great Pyramid in Giza was covered in 144,000 smooth white casing stones. A Mayan back tomb is a 396-year period. It's 144,000 days. And in Revelations, supposedly there's 144,000 saved souls before the apocalypse happens. So it seems like this number, and maybe this whole grid, has kind of been haunting humanity a little bit, and maybe there was awareness of it, and we're kind of coming back to it. And then we can't hardly talk about geometry and everything else without talking about the Freemasons. And the Freemasons, their big numbers are 3s and 13s. You've seen, and people, what is the significance of 13? If you look at the back of, or not the back of a dollar bill, you will see the unfinished pyramid that has the eye floating over it. You probably won't notice it has 13 steps going up it. Every single, in our Great Seal for the United States, there's really almost sacred geometry. There's a 13-pointed star, our 13 original colonies, 13 stripes in the flag. The eagle that you see is holding 13 olive branches on one side, 13 arrows in the other, 13, 13, 13 all over the place. 13 times, so let's take our 13 and times 3s, all 3s. 13 times 33.3 is 432. 144,000, the big mystery number of 144,000. Divide that by 432. It's 3s and 2 infinity. It just keeps going. It's nothing but 3s. And circles in the Genesis pattern is 13. So it kind of seems to me like, I don't know what the Freemasons and the Illuminati are up to today, but it seems like the buildings, the things that they were doing were preserving, to me, this old sacred information and waiting for us to kind of catch up to the significance of what is geometry, because Freemasons are all about geometry. That's the way they built the buildings they did. That geometry matters in our understanding of frequency. And that might be where I stopped here. It goes deeper, and we have a video coming out in about 5 weeks, and it starts, but that's kind of where we're at. And what we're going to do now is we're going to play frequency for it. I'm going to go upstairs. We're going to push A432 in pure frequency for you to hear. Is it the act? I've never done it here before. We've played other things. I've never played 432 here before as pure frequency. So it's just tone. We're going to play that. And then I'm going to play you all of the geometric tones. And now hopefully you understand those as 180s, 360s, 540s, 720s, 1440s, 2160s. You're going to hear all those as frequency. The whole thing only takes 10 minutes, and then we're done for this part of the presentation.
Eric, did you make everybody sign a waiver?
Yeah. Well, I did give people earplugs. If you think you want earplugs, I'll give them to you. So there you go. There's sonic geometry in